podcast focused on trends shaping the future of manufacturing. I'm Alexandria Burek, your host, here with A.W. Schultz, two thought leaders with a passion for people and manufacturing. Today and every episode, we are diving deep into the advancements, sustainable practices, and dynamic changes transforming how we produce everything.
And now welcome Alexandria Burek and A.W. Schultz.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Factory of the Future with A.W. Schultz and myself, Alexandria Burek. Today, you can expect to learn about the underbelly of the ammunition manufacturing world. A.W. has lots of facts to share with us today. What we'll discuss are things like the hidden ties of the U.S. government to the ammunition manufacturing companies, how the U.S. manufacturing companies are preparing to meet an increased demand for this ammunition, and so much more. So, A.W., why don't you open up here with this topic, given the ammunition rabbit hole you found yourself in over the last week? So take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Alexandria. So a couple things when I did some research on this is what interesting part about it is that the U.S. government has been tasked to supply of lot to artilleries, particularly the 155 millimeter shell to Ukraine. And what was currently at one of the larger plants in Pennsylvania, they've been asked to increase production by 50%. So what was once 24,000 rounds a month, they're trying to boost it up to 36,000 rounds per month. And nationally, they're trying to get it to 100,000 rounds per month. Now, the primary function is to cut the forges of this is a 2,000 pound steel bar that they forge into it. And for those watching on the video, you can see how it's being made. But the reason this became interesting to me is because I was approached to it last week on a project management opportunity to go and assist with the overseeing 3 production lines that they're trying to get online earlier this year. And what drove me into the interest in this, one, is the preparation for the discussion on it and understanding about what would this be. For myself, I've never worked in an artillery manufacturing facility, and it was exciting just for the idea and the possibility of being part of a project like that. But ultimately, I stepped aside on it, but it didn't stop me from doing a little research on it, and I wanted to share that with you today. And I thought it was a great topic, as it's meeting just the not only national news but world news as Ukraine and Russia maintain their war. So one of the things we're seeing is that the majority of the growth is driven by, as I said, Ukraine. They're sending about 3 million artillery rounds to Ukraine so far. And this is primarily their 150 millimeter artillery shell that can strike targets between 15 and 20 miles away. Wow. Depending on the shell, the firing system is used. The capabilities can be highly variable and can travel in very different distances. It's so big because it's meant to break through tanks and heavily armed crafts on that. So as it stands right now, Ukraine is using between 7,000 and 9,000 artilleries per month. And the U.S. has invested, they're trying to take in this company is invest about $5.5 billion to increase productivity.
And I'm going to pause you right there. We're on a roll with the statistics, but we need to have a little sidebar here. So the United States government is investing $5.5 billion in artillery and ammunition manufacturing in the United States to meet this demand. That's what we're talking about right here, right?
Yes, in one type of shell.
Wild. That is just wild. Okay, so last episode, or depending on when we put this out, because this might have to be bumped up, we talked a little bit recently individually, whether it's in sequence of this podcast or not, about the labor shortage. And one thing that I'm just trying to put my mind around here as we think about a $5.5 billion investment, which also I'm going to segue into the question mark behind that of, is it really an investment, or is it a guaranteed revenue, buying revenue? So we'll ask that question second. But how do we think that this will affect the labor shortage that already exists? We're already 500,000 jobs short. We've got 2 million. We're projected to be 2 million jobs short by the next 5 years, and yet we're going to double production of ammunition in addition to this already existing shortage. How does that factor in? Like, how do we see this playing out?
Something's got to give. And I imagine that if you're like most companies, you start hiring or you start paying a premium wages, running that overtime. But
and we can't just be unselective with the people you hire either. Like you work at McDonald's, you could lower the bar a little bit. You work at an artillery factory, you would think, that's security risk. We can't lower the bar too low, like can have some idea, because these things are explosive, and we would want to have some degree of discretion when we're hiring somebody. So that's a question there. I just can't put my mind around it.
Well, these are just the shell, the outer casing.
Yeah.
So they actually shipped them to Iowa, where they put the artillery into it.
Packed. Yeah. Okay.
Another interesting thing about this is, there's not really outsourcing to it. So these factories are owned by the government, and they are government employees working in there that oversee it.
So that labor is not cheap.
Probably not. From what I looked at, they've got a very senior staff, which means that their jobs have been very secure for a long time.
Yeah.
And as the U.S. is shipping a lot of these 150 millimeter artillery shells, they also have depleted their current stock. So they're trying to stock up again too, which is driving a lot of the demand for it.
That seems like another risky position for the United States government. Like, if we are sending all of our stuff, our supply, that means we don't have what we need. And now we also don't have a labor force and necessarily raw materials, because I used to buy steel for a period of time, and I know how difficult that can be. Some of the steel we bought was actually for a government contract. And if ever that spec was, a shortage, we could trump basically all the other customers from that given steel supplier and say, listen, we have a U.S. government contract. We're buying this to fulfill U.S. government orders, and our order needs to come in front of anybody and everybody else that's not a U.S. government order. And that's just absolutely wild to me. Very unsettling in a certain way as well. Sorry to derail, but yeah, and I think we glossed over that for a second, but like, I didn't know governments could own businesses. Like, I didn't know the government could own a business. Did you?
Not until I read this.
Right. So like, I wonder how many Americans actually understand that there's probably multiple businesses. I would guess that they own technology firms, because God knows that the U.S. government is using advanced technology. They're using security, data and cybersecurity type things. How many businesses, I wonder, does the government actually own? I mean, not to go down really weird holes, but like, that is just baffling to me as well. And then I'm going to guess they're for profit, but like, that seems a little tangled, I'm just going to say.
Yeah, my research, I wasn't able to find that out. But to your point about the $5.5 billion, that is that includes multiple different types of military and artillery. But it also includes subcontractors' costs. So you think about, like you said, the raw materials, steel, bars, other things like that. So some of the data that I also grabbed up was within that $5.5 billion. That 150 millimeter artillery round, they've seen 178% increase.
Wow.
Propelling charges, 24%. These javelins, don't ask me what that is. I'm not the military type, but I did get them a lot off the military sites. 14, 15, 116% in the PAC-3 SE. So it's gaining traction. And certainly if there's, if there's a bell curve on it, I think that we're starting to head up it. I don't think it's coming down for at least a few years, especially since Russia and Ukraine haven't really shown that there's any dominance going back and forth.
No. And, I think there's a lot, again, I'm not a historian and I'm not a war expert here, but an observation that I'd like to share or make for the audience outside of this, but I think is related to the topic of ammunition and this increased demand for it. And what U.S. factories, what we're talking about, are supposed to be the ones that supply this stuff and to meet this quadrupling ridiculously in exponential increase in demand. But I wonder, it's not to discount the Ukrainian and Russian war, but there seems to be a lot of other things going on that are kind of taking a back seat or just left in the peripheral or they're not front and center stage like the Ukrainian and Russian war. And I'm not saying it's not deserving or anything, but there seems to be a lot of other things going on in the world. Like I have a family member who is a very high-ranking military official, and he has been in Asia, like Korea, like every other week. And I just heard another woman last night when I was out talking about how her family member of some sort who's in the armed forces of one of the branches, I don't know, but that they were also in Korea. So there seems to be like a lot going on elsewhere that could be also contributing to this increased demand. I wonder. So just an observation and a caveat to consider for other folks out there when they're thinking about this. But I know you wanted to talk a little bit about the Cold War. Did you feel like right now is a good time to dive into that, or?
No, it is. It is.
Okay, great.
And just filling up on your point, you're starting to see just on the news where there's lots of everyone's trying to build an alliance with someone else, which gets a little bit scary when you start thinking about, the last time we saw this was in World War II. But in my research on this topic, I came to the question is like, okay, so this isn't the first time something like this has happened before. And the earliest one I can think of is when the Cold War occurred. And around 1991 was kind of the date that they saw is that when the Cold War started to end, we had all these factories and all these organizations, bulking up, building up all these inventories. And then all of a sudden, USSR collapses. So what happens to these industries, particularly in the US? And one of the things that happens, you start talking about the air defense. So, Lockheed merged with another company called Martin Martia in 1995, and they formed Lockheed Martin. Lockheed Martin, yeah. Still a big company. Yeah. Boeing acquired McDonnell Douglas, and other consolidations that also occurred. There was also diversification. Many companies divided.
Can I ask a quick question? Sorry, on the note of consolidation, can we talk about just really quickly from your perspective and from maybe some things that you studied or learned throughout your career and you're just researching as you have? I don't think I have an opinion on whether consolidation or these mergers are a good or bad thing. I'm neutral because I don't think I know enough. So like, what is your take on it? And not just from maybe like the large corporate mentality or perspective, but like, what do you think that translates to the manufacturing community, to the workforce, to the workers? And, do you think there's just as many upsides as there are downsides? Or like, how do you see that shaking out for the workforce?
Every time I've been part of a consolidation, there's been job loss.
Yeah.
And a lot of times these companies are acquiring them for some of their talent, but a lot of their resources and their products.
Okay, so interesting take. Job loss from your point of view, because maybe the organizations that you've been a part of were the ones that had the loss?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So our business that I work for, it grows through acquisition, right? Like, we, as individual corporations or for corporations originally that like acquired different businesses, mom and pop shops. And while it would be ignorant of me to say that there weren't people who lost their jobs because where there was one accounting person per plant. Obviously, that shifted over time and changed to a more corporate structure. And then there became one or two accountants for 20 plants. So I'm not ignorant to that. I just want to make that clear. But I will say that like it also opens up doors that wouldn't otherwise and growth opportunities that wouldn't otherwise for the people that do have the talent and can manage to be seen by that, right? So like I'm a beneficiary of consolidation and a merger and acquisition because I was seen as talent enough to, to grow and move up into, the corporate structure, like leadership teams and etc. So I just want to make that point known as well that like I think it's easy to see it as a negative when we talk about consolidation, but I also think it's a positive. I also think that some of the people that end up leaving either by choice or not, I feel like they honestly end up in better situations for themselves too, because usually the ones that don't work out for whatever reason are not really people who want to subscribe or see themselves a part of the long-term vision of the organization either. A lot of the long-time people, Mauser's made up of, the company I work for is made up of two groups of workers. There's the lifers, people who started their career there and never left. And then there's the people who come and go every 2 to 3 years and slide in, they do great things, and then they exit stage left to go on to the next thing. And I wonder how many of the lifers, like in these Lockheed Martin and other things, like, what is the ripple effect from those things? And I just didn't know if you had any interesting perspectives or takes on that. And I guess I more so had I wanted to talk about it. So sorry.
What they have here, if you think of, so the Cold War occurs, so there's not as much demand anymore. So to think that there was more jobs being created it wouldn't be accurate.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
there was job loss.
Yeah.
But there was also acquisition of resources that occurred, and I think that's primarily one of the primary reasons. When I've been part of 2 acquisitions, both of them where it was my entry-level supervisor job. And one, they were trying to sell off and get bought by a bigger one. And the next one, the bigger one, was trying to sell them off because they realized they were
not as profitable.
No, it wasn't part of the portfolio, and
okay.
It just didn't fit in.
Yeah.
But it went to a better company that it met the portfolio better. But a whole change in management. So I saw myself starting my job over twice.
Yeah, it's very stressful for the workforce. I think there's a way to do it right, but oftentimes I think at least in manufacturing, probably more so than any others, and even depending on like these, what I might consider more like white chip, blue chip, whatever types of organizations. I still don't think that they put enough towards the people part of it, right? Like, and that's what we're all talking about. What we love to talk about on Factory of the Future is bringing that human-centric approach into business, and especially manufacturing, because I think it's one of the more rough around the edges industries that exist. So, not to side rail or detract, but yeah. So do you think then that because we're at the beginning of this and we don't have to worry, we're now in like the growth and expansion and job creation space, and that we don't have to worry about the job loss and overguarding of resources until, much later down the line? Is that what you're kind of coming to this consensus of at this point?
The consensus is that, yeah, I still believe in the report we talked about and the other ones, that there's going to be more than ever. I think there's going to be a need for manufacturing positions.
Yeah.
And particularly some of my research that there's a demand in there that it's not being tapped, because many of them are coming from primarily they're male, and where half the population isn't even going into that sector.
Mm-hmm.
What the other thing was that, when the Cold War occurred, we didn't see another uptick in military increase until 2001 attacks.
Yeah, until
and that's what started to change things again. And I'd imagine we've done this kind of thing since then, and we're picking up. So scary or not, I'm not sure, but there's definitely a lot of attention to it. Certainly, I mean, I didn't think I'd be talking about Ukraine, but it's having an effect in the manufacturing industries, and it's creating a lot of job opportunities that I think they're going to have to find a way to deal with, especially in the military industry, because I don't think they want to subcontract those out to a lot of other countries.
No. I really think that the solution, the solve is going to be partly, like we said, is just being a primary employer, or a premium employer, I should say. So the best benefits, the best pensions. Obviously, if you're a government employee, you're getting those things. You're getting the premier healthcare coverage at a low cost. All these things, those are real selling points. If I'm putting myself in a workforce attracting kind of headspace, if I was trying to attract the workforce, that's what I would be offering. And then, beyond that, I think, like we talk about, it's about the environment. So hopefully when they're installing these lines, they're doing it with high technology that reduces the amount of human input, reduces the amount of human, potential for human injury and all those things. And then I think, like, the third thing is really going to be driving forward with, like, a human-centric approach, a more focusing a lot on camaraderie, and not just like very rigid, very like strict manufacturing KPIs. I think kind of by building this whole complete best place to work, they'll probably be competitive. But I also think they absolutely need to invest in technology and really leverage as much automation, as much of that stuff as they can. I think we need, as a manufacturing superpower, to put as much possible into automation and robotics, because and it can't just be Elon Musk doing these things and other, few other players. Everybody needs to come together to solve this problem. Otherwise, manufacturing as a whole is going to be in a real troublesome situation.
Yeah. A couple other data points I wanted to share is, if you think about the annual defense budget for 2024 was $886 billion. Now that's more than most economies, a country's economies. Research and development, to where you talk about robotics and cobalts and people working together, is not to say that this goes all into it, but they approximately put into about $145 billion. So it's an impressive number, but certainly there's, when you start talking about filling these roles, I think there's another conversation out there. And you're exactly on point, that human centric, that, and we've talked about it before, is that sometimes a salary is, there's more to it.
Yeah. I mean, I think also, if I'm looking towards the future, the healthcare crisis is not a joke. That's also just probably equally up there with whatever we've got war-wise in the United States. And I think if you're offering like not only good healthcare benefits, but I think now what companies need to be doing to be considered cutting edge or on the forefront here with that space is offering more homeopathic type, options. Like maybe, I keep hearing advertisements for Function Health, where you could get screened for cancer, and it's like 100 different cancers that you could get screened for like $500. Like offering those types of benefits to employees could be a real easy way to put yourselves ahead. The organization I work for, their benefits package includes unlimited, not the organization I work for, meaning my W-2 employer, but one of my partner organizations. They offer a program that, for almost no cost to the employee or the employer, the employee can get unlimited mental health counseling with like literal psychologists, all of that. They can get their prescriptions paid for free, delivered to their house, and they could get pre-screened for a handful of cancers and other types of things. So like, imagine if employers were offering those benefits. Now all of a sudden an employee has to think about giving up their free therapy appointments or their children's free therapy appointments because they want to leave the job. Like, there's a lot more tied to it than just a simple cut and dry salary and cost of living increase every year. So those are some of the other things to think about as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about. I think we haven't even tapped into healthcare services.
No, honestly, we might have to get into that one day. But I feel like we've really run around the world here in terms of topics, in terms of ideas and concepts, all relating back to the manufacturing world. And my only hope and prayer is that we don't have to use this ammunition that we're bulking up on, and that it's somehow through some beautiful super solution, it just resolves itself. As my grandma would say, I hope it sorts itself out. So I'm hoping it sorts itself out somehow. So with that, AW, are you thinking we're clocking out of here?
Yeah, we've been all the way from Ukraine to the Cold War and back again, and healthcare. So good episode, and we are clocking out here like finished goods.
Yeah.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
This is Factory of the Future, and we are out of here like finished goods. Stay tuned for our next episode of Factory of the Future, where we're exploring groundbreaking techniques and behaviors that are reshaping industrial landscapes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and help others discover the cutting-edge insights transforming manufacturing as we know it.